Hi, Richie.
Hi, Sen.
Hi, everyone. And welcome to episode 222 of the Snack Covenant.
Oh my god.
And today we have a very special guest with us.
Introduce yourself, special guest.
Hey everybody! Hi, my name's Robin. I didn't know I was going to be on such a, numerologically auspicious episode.
I didn't understand one of those words.
It's 222.
Oh.
That's an event.
Yeah.
Oh my god, how are we celebrating?
Well, by having me on your show.
Yay! I was gonna say let's go get some Japanese slippers. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, your comics, and stuff like that?
Okay, well, I'm Robin. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I am a writer. I write primarily comics, and I work with a variety of artists. If you want to see them, they're at robinbfoss.com. I sell them for about $5 each. I usually write a lot of stuff in post-apocalyptic genres, and I have some romance stuff in there. I also have a podcast that should be out by the time this airs.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's called Anarchistory. We kind of take a look at history and media and current events from an anti-authoritarian perspective.
Sounds fancy. Thank you, Robin. So today we're going to talk about Dark Souls, and specifically we'll talk about the characters Fina and Velka.
Fina and Velka.
Fina and Velka.
So I contacted Sinclair on Twitter because I have this unhinged kind of pet lore theory about Dark Souls 1 that I have never seen discussed anywhere else, and I'm kind of wondering if I'm missing something that's going to make the whole thing just fall apart, but so far I haven't found it. So maybe you can help me out with that. Maybe you can pick this apart and tell me why I'm wrong. But okay, so from Lautrec's storyline, we know that he is a worshiper of Fina, and Fina is a goddess of fateful beauty. She takes care of and protects her followers, but demands absolute loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the way Lautrec's storyline goes, we know that he, kills a firekeeper to take her firekeeper's soul, and we find a firekeeper's soul on a dead body at the feet of this statue in the undead parish.
Right.
Do you agree that that statue is Fina?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, this is something that we've talked about with the way that the Souls games depict churches. And this is true of a lot of Japanese RPGs, is that they just shove statues of random women in them. Because they've seen, oh yeah, this statue, they've seen Christian churches that have statues of Mary and statues of various female saints in them and just sort of put them in there. Because there was that whole thing about, in the Sunlight Altar, there's also a statue of a woman, and there's a statue of a woman behind Firelink Shrine, and there's this whole thing about, is that Gwyn's wife? Is that such and such? And, it's never really identified as anyone in particular. It's just here's a statue of a woman because this is a sacred place.
Okay. So yeah, this story that I have in my head, it kind of hinges on that idea.
Okay.
That is Fina, and that's why that Firekeeper soul is there, because he was making a sacrifice to her. Because presumably, like a lot of people in that game, she collects humanity. Like Gwyn does, like Quelaag does, because it's a resource that can... And she's holding a baby. This is a statue of a woman holding a baby, and the baby is holding a sword.
Are you guys thinking what I'm thinking?
Possibly.
Does this involve mafia babies?
Yes.
I have not looked ahead. I don't know. Is there a mafia baby in Reborn who has a sword? Do I have to live through this, or...?
But there's a mafia baby in Reborn who has a shape-shifting chameleon who can turn into a sword.
Now, Robin, I don't know if you're aware of Sin's obsession with the anime Katekyo Hitman Reborn, because what Sin doesn't grasp is that even though we do Souls content and Reborn content, about 80% if the listeners don't listen to the Reborn content, but she assumes there's a complete Venn diagram overlap, and she can just bring it up.
I have 0 point of reference for Reborn.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but let me ask you, Robin, do you watch anime?
Yes.
So, Reborn is like the greatest anime of all time. It's about mafia babies.
I've never heard of it, other than when you guys mention it offhand.
All right, okay.
Hi, it's another one of these little asides that Sin thinks are cute, and she wants me to explain what Reborn is. So, Reborn is an anime about a baby who is also a hitman. And Sin likes it, and 3 other people like it. And on the basis of that, she decided to force me to watch it with her. And then to record our reactions and upload them to the channel, but with misleading titles, so that you, the audience, can be tricked into watching Reborn with us. As a result of Reborn, at least one person has quit the Patreon. We will be covering Season 2 later this year. Alright, so the statue.
Yeah,
The
so there's this
statue, yes.
statue
Yeah.
of a woman who is very possibly Fina, who is holding
Yeah.
a baby who is holding a sword. And that same statue of a woman holding a baby holding a sword is in that sunlight altar, where there is a broken apart statue that is probably the firstborn, right?
Yeah.
Because it's where Solaire hangs out.
I remember back in like the old Solaire is the firstborn obsessive theory. The idea was that the baby was Solaire because it had the sword.
Yeah, he has the same sword.
Yeah.
Should a baby be wielding a sword?
Is this an attempt to get us to talk about Reborn again?
No!
The only reason a baby should be wielding a sword is if that baby is a god of war, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, it probably couldn't pick up the sword. Like,
yeah, but in a statue, it's like symbolic.
Yeah.
We're taking this baby and we're giving it a sword because that is
Yeah.
an important thing to understand about this baby.
So could this have been like a family photo shoot?
I think it is. I think it's exactly that.
Yeah, because you can give like baby little hats and just like, I don't know, teddy bears. In this case, they're like, oh, hold this prop sword. And then they click, take a picture, and it's really cute.
That'd be cool if you can make statues like that.
Oh my god, you go click and the statue appears?
Yeah, and there's just a full white marble statue.
Yeah, like a super advanced 3D printer.
I mean, what is Michelangelo but a super advanced 3D printer?
That's true.
Okay, so please continue, Robin.
Okay, so I think that baby is the god of war, the firstborn.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that woman is his mother, which means that Fina is the mother of at least one of Gwyn's children. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Oh!
Right.
Gwyn's in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't we establish Gwyn was in trouble a while ago?
Yeah, Gwyn, this whole game is Gwyn's in trouble, and I think that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
If Gwyn is Zeus, Gwyn is obviously Zeus, right?
Yeah.
He throws lightning bolts, he's the
Yeah,
king of all the gods. One of his sons is the god of war. His daughter is Demeter, the harvest goddess. And Zeus's wife is Hera, and she is also kind of a goddess of fateful beauty. She is also a person who is nurturing but also demands loyalty. She's
Right.
she's often the person who keeps Zeus in check. Like, Zeus will get out of hand, he'll do something irresponsible, and she comes in and kind of puts him in check and tries to influence his decision making and punishes him. She's kind of the one person capable of punishing him when he does something bad or when he cheats on her or something. So that that rings true for Fina to me. I feel like that the parallels there, that if we look at that statue and say that, oh, that woman is Gwen's wife and that's Fina, like that squares to me with what we know about Fina and what we know about Hera.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take a walk from the Undead Parish back to Firelink Shrine, there's another statue of a woman holding a baby that is seemingly a younger baby because it's still in swaddling clothes and it's very Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
So basically I started thinking of those statues of a woman with a child as being all the same character. Like if we're thinking of this in terms of iconography, you know, if there's this statue of a mother, that there is this mother that we are making statues of. So when you see a big statue of a woman holding a baby, especially if it's in some kind of church, you can think of it as a statue of the same god, in the same way that, like, Guan Yu always holds the same sword, or, you know, like, especially, like, Chinese, like, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and things are depicted holding certain objects that you can identify them by.
Yeah.
So I start following a trail of these statues of a woman with a child, and that leads you down to New Londo Ruins, where there is a similar statue. Or actually, before you get to the New Londo Ruins, you go through that elevator shaft, and there's a statue of a woman standing with her hand outstretched downward, but the statue is, like, really worn down smooth. And then you get down to New Londo Ruins, and there's that same statue, but instead of it being completely worn down smooth, there is that same woman, like, standing there with a slightly older child that's standing on its own next to her. And then you see that same statue in the Painted World. It's the one that turns when you pull the lever.
Right.
So if you play with the idea that that is, like, the same person as the statue in the Undead Parish, then the story that popped into my head, at least, was that you have this royal family with Gwyn as the patriarch who rules over everything, and he has this wife who essentially supports him and takes care of his children and raises his children, but also kind of keeps him in check. Then, over time, as his power starts to wane, he starts to become more and more paranoid and starts alienating everybody around him. You know, he alienates Havel, who he used to fight with. He has various former allies who he breaks ties with.
Yeah.
He has various people betray him. He has Seath kind of go behind his back in some ways. You have Gwendolyn, who I don't think is his real son. Oh, yeah, side note, I think the reason Gwendolyn was raised as a girl was because he has those tentacle things.
Yeah.
Which, you know, speak to him having different parentage, so they have to hide those tentacles, which means they had to put him in a dress.
There's an interesting thing with Gwendolyn that was sort of like, it's very hard to notice because it's on the asset they use for the backdrops of, like, when you're reading the miracles, so you don't see it and it's like low res. But if you look at the original, it depicts Gwyn and Gwendolyn together, like, addressing a crowd, and Gwendolyn pretty much just looks like Gwendolyn does in game, and it's like, I guess Gwendolyn wasn't being hidden, or I don't know.
That's
it's
strange.
It's very strange.
But that kind of squares with what I'm talking about, where, like, he wasn't necessarily hidden from the public, but they did have to hide that he was kind of half I think half Seath, frankly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, the music when you're fighting Gwendolyn is the Moonlight Butterfly theme, which is Seath's creation. And then Gwendolyn is using magic, which is a Seath thing. It's not using divine stuff. Yeah.
I hadn't even made that connection. But yeah, I think we're on the same page there. So
yeah.
I think what happens is that as Gwyn alienates people, he starts to alienate his own family. And you have Guinevere at some point leaving him to go someplace safer. We don't know where. And then we have Fina, I think, cheating on him with Seath. And Seath kind of using Fina. Maybe he like plays into like her cheating on her husband with him in order to do his experiments about, like creating a dragon person or like achieving immortality.
Very Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, it's very messy, like the Greek gods.
Yeah, they're always cheating on each other. And this is why, like, the whole question over the parentage of Gwen's children, because a lot of people were like, well, who's the mother? As if there's going to be one mother.
Oh yeah, no, I
And
don't
it's
think there
like,
is just
no,
one.
like, yeah. Like, you never hear about the mother because Gwen is just, like, having children by various women.
Yeah, but I think Fina is the first, and I think she is the mother of the firstborn and of Guinevere. And then I think Gwendolyn is not Gwen's child. I think Gwendolyn is the child of Seath and Fina that was raised as his child.
Mm-hmm. I just had a vision.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know how there's a bunch of shows called Real Housewives or whatever?
Real Housewives of Anne Orlando. So yeah, I think probably, if I'm just thinking purely character wise, I think probably the last straw was when Gwen's own firstborn son turned against him, and Gwen responded by erasing him from all the history books.
Mm-hmm.
Tore down all his statues and caused everybody to forget his name and so on.
Right, yeah.
And I think, in my mind, that is when Fina starts turning against him. Like, really turning against them. And then you have this whole plot against the gods, which ends with a lot of people associated with people and things associated with this plot against the gods ending up in the painted world to like keep them out of this
Quarantine
world.
it,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why I think you have that same statue in the painted world along with the occult ember and the crow people and things, because I think that when Fina turned against her husband, she took on the name Velka and became a goddess of sin in order to like exact retribution against him.
Interesting.
Because when if you think about the word sin, I'm not super familiar with the lore in Dark Souls 2, but I do know that like the quote unquote first sin was Gwen's actions.
We think, yeah.
So I don't know, that's the only other time I hear the word sin used. So that feels like a connection, maybe.
My name is Sin.
That's true.
So you're the goddess of sin.
Oh my god! What a twist! You just reminded me of this commercial. Richie, it's a funny one.
Like how you
the-
can tell that I'm just like hanging my head and thinking, Jesus Christ.
There's this guy that's like doing the twist, right? And he's looking at a bottle. And then the camera zooms in on the bottle cap and it says twist to open.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So that's an interesting theory. Because Velka has connection to the painted world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Velka was mad at Gwen as Fina, and that's why she was part of the rebellion and this whole thing. But in your theory, does Velka need to be Fina for it to work? Can they still be two separate entities that were both mad at Gwen?
I mean, that's also possible. I just think it's interesting that you have that trail of statues of women with children that lead you from a statue that is pretty clearly Fina to a statue that is probably Velka.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That you have this like mother goddess who is also vengeful.
The other thing that 2 introduces is the idea that over time, like, the gods have, like, their names have been forgotten and they've been kind of renamed and they've got new associations.
Yeah, you see that in later games too, where
Yeah.
what was the example? I know that people forget Gwen's name by the end of the series.
Yeah. And, like, in 3, it's sort of like, I don't know how much of this is a deliberate thing and how much of it is that they changed the story at the last minute. But there's this really like weird implication that Velka and Kytha might be the same, or at least aspects of the same entity, if not literally the same entity with different names.
I tried reading up on Kytha, but I couldn't find much.
Kytha is mostly in 2, and then they bring her back in 3, but the way they bring her back is like it's so close to Velka.
Could you elaborate on the elements that connect them?
They make a big deal out of Morn and
Oh yeah,
Irina
and
being
he
yeah, he worships Kytha, and they're from Kareem, which is all like Kytha worship according to them.
Okay.
Yeah, so what happens is like there's this they go there's the Cathedral of the Deep, where there was this big confusion over who is there's this statue, again going back to statues, there's this statue of a woman whose face is covered throughout the cathedral. And it's like, who is this supposed to be? And I think there is some, it's been a long time, but there's some implication that it's Kytha. But then what happens is, when they introduce the DLC and you go back to the Painted World, Gale is at the altar in the Cathedral of the Deep, and he's specifically praying to Velka. And when you go into that Painted World and you meet Frida, Frida is dressed like the women in the statues. She's got this very long veil over her face, and they make a big point of, well, what's happened is Frida she says like she's taken on a form that the Crow people would worship, implying like she's taken on the form of Velka, so the Crow people worship her. So it's like, well, okay, I guess all the statues in this cathedral are actually Velka, and it's a big Velka statue. It's like a big Velka worshipping place.
But when you first see the statue, you think this woman is crying, and Kytha is known as the goddess of tears, right?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't exactly sure how to plug Kytha into this whole thing.
Miyazaki wasn't either.
She seems like a fairly minor deity when you look at her, like the goddess of tears.
She's not a particularly important character as far as the story goes, but then being the goddess of tears, she's the goddess that's associated with the Tearstone rings that everyone uses. If you're doing like a specific like high damage build, you want the red Tearstone ring. So a lot of people still, she's sort of forefront in a lot of people's minds, even though she's not. She's basically just a background character for a lot of it. Oh, the other Velka Kytha thing is that the Kytha's chime that you use to cast the miracle chime, that scales with intelligence, which is the same thing that Velka's talisman does in 1.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder if there is a thing of maybe after Gwyn is finally brought down that her name may change again. I don't know. Oh yeah, you also have the raven that sits on top of that altar in Firelink Shrine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it often I was looking at it the way its head moves, and it kind of like looks one way, and then it looks one of the ways it looks is straight at that statue, but that's probably a coincidence.
Yeah. There's also the way that like Gwendolyn is head of the covenant that's like connected to Sin, which is Velka's domain. Like it's all over the place.
Yeah. That's the other kind of sad story from this, that I feel like as everybody around Gwyn started deserting him when he finally was just completely paranoid and obsessed with everybody stabbing him in the back, and everybody who used to be loyal to him is leaving and realizing that he is on his way out, it's Gwendolyn, the kind of unloved person who had to be hid away, who stays by his side and actually like tries to keep his legacy going more than anybody else. That I find that to be pretty sad. Like he was that desperate for his father's love.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my main unhinged Dark Souls theory.
Awesome. Richard, do you have any thoughts?
No, it's like I was saying, like so much of the imagery in it's not specifically tied down to any one thing. Cuz like talking about the statue in Undead Parish, like, to me, that's probably where there was literally just a firekeeper was there. And the firekeeper got killed by Lautrec, and then Lautrec got put in the cell before there was a chance to run off with the soul. It's where Rhea prays after you rescue her. She'll move there, she'll start praying at the altar, and there's the channeler is there, and the channelers are out kidnapping women for Seath, so, like, it could be any number of things.
Mm-hmm.
But, like,
Yeah.
Velka is weird because Velka is something it's very vague, but it ends up becoming more and more important as the series goes on, to the point where, like, there's all the stuff about the Crow people in 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they go from just, like, these are weird enemies in the painted world, what are these, to, like, these things are everywhere and they're playing some important role in the story that's never really explained.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that whole theory that, like, Velka is the one... Velka literally is the crow that rescues you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that could be true or not, and it wouldn't really affect things.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that she is somebody... She was, like, one of the final people that he alienated. Like, when he kind of transforms into this tyrant, she finally abandons him and dedicates herself to bringing him down and sides with the humans and stuff.
Yeah. It says she's like, I forget the exact wording, but it's like she's like an outsider specifically. She doesn't...
She's a rogue deity or something like that?
Yeah, rogue deity. Yeah, she's like, sounds like a terrible, like, novel.
Oh, she
like,
went rogue.
Deity. Yeah.
That's what that implies to me, is that she wasn't a rogue deity and then she went rogue. Also, the divine ember, or, like, the divine upgrade path is the one that you need to fully upgrade before you get to a cult.
Right, yeah.
So you have, like, something that is has its source in, like, the Way of White and the royal family that then twists into a kryptonite that can be used to take them down.
Yeah. And, like, sin itself is interesting in Dark Souls because it's almost like a legalistic form of sin rather than, like, you did something wrong. It's just like, did you break the following rules? If so, like, you just get this like mark next to your name that you can then, there's ways to get rid of it. So you can be like that. There's that thing about Petrus, because the only way, like, you can save Rhea is to just kill the non-hostile Petrus, which is a sin. Like, you've sinned if you've murdered Petrus, because he doesn't aggro on you. You have to aggro him. So even though you're doing it to save someone and you know he is a murderer, to actually involve yourself in that and try to prevent it happening, you have committed a sin according to, like, the rules of sin.
Yeah, it's very Catholic.
Yeah, it's this interesting thing where, well, it's a bit Catholic, but it's also, like, it sort of doesn't matter what kind of person you are. Like, you can be a good person and still sin, and you can be a bad person and not sin, because the concept of sin is so legalistic rather than to do with what kind of person you actually are.
Yeah.
Like, you can be a forest hunter and get indicted, even though you're just defending the forest.
Right.
Cool.
Well, yeah, cool.
Richie, do the outro.
That was a discussion of Fina and Kaitha and some other gods with Robin. Robin, would you like to just reiterate where people can find you if they are interested in you and your projects?
Yeah, it's robinbfoss.com. Everything's there. I have webcomics for sale and links to my other projects and my social media and stuff like that. So it's robinbfoss.com.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming, Robin.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie.
Thank you, Sin. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks. This was fun.
And thanks, everyone, for listening. See y'all next time.
Bye.
Say bye, Robin.
Bye.
Enthusiastically?
Bye, folks.